Okay. I see Sam is looking at me. I'm running out. No, not yet. No, Sam, I'm just joking. I should not put it on you, project on you. Okay. I know some of you have not even started to talk. You say, what verse did Dirk give us here? It doesn't make sense. Oh, come on. But I would like you now. Okay, now I have to get back. And I'm going to ask one person in each group just to say shortly. Just to say shortly. Okay, what have you discovered from this verse? And I'm going to do a very dangerous thing. I'm going to actually hand you the microphone.
Okay, thank you. What we discovered as group 1, it's according to Deuteronomy 31 in the verses 13. We see that the children were also taken to go up where their parents were being taught the word of God. So they were also there to hear what the ministers were saying concerning the word. And also we see, as we were discussing, we saw that we also touched on Joshua. We noticed that when we touched on Joshua didn't have a mentor that he passed or someone who caught what he was doing. That's why we see in Judges, that's where we find that there were children who didn't know the Lord. That's all we discussed. Thank you.
Beautiful. All right. I think you can see the verse up here, Deuteronomy 31. Call together all the men, women, and children, and the foreigners. Xenophobia. Right. Why? So that everyone might hear and learn to honor the Lord and obey Him. Okay. You refer to Joshua, exactly what Joshua did. Joshua came and he read Moses' teaching in front of the whole assembly of Israel, including women, children, and foreigners living amongst them. He did not leave out one word from everything Moses had commanded. How long was that sermon? Everything that Moses commanded. How long was that sermon? And the children were there. The poor guys. We say, Pastor, you can't go beyond 5 minutes. My children are asleep. I am not going to go deeply into this. But this is something extremely profound. The children and the foreigners were there when the whole law was read. Okay, let's jump to the next verse. I know we should spend time on each one of them. Let me just ask this question. What's wrong with this picture? Now, this is a painting. It's a modern painting of depicting something of the old temple service. So what's wrong with this picture? Huh? No children. Okay, you are too clever. Let's hear from this group in the back. I'm going to read the verse, and then you can just tell us what did you discover. Now, the background is David. He started to teach the Levites and the priests. He started to prepare them for the temple service, because his son is going to build the temple, and then everything must be ready. They can't build the building and then prepare the people. The people must be prepared, then you can build the building. All right, okay. So David said, all these Levites sang at the Lord's temple under the direction of their fathers Asaph, Jeduthun, and Heman. They played cymbals, lyres, and harps for the worship in God's temple under the direction of the king. They, along with their relatives, were trained, skilled musicians for the Lord. There were 288 of them. But look now, how did they perform? When they got up there on the stage, they were a big worship team. They drew lots for the assignments of duties, the youngest as well as the oldest, the skilled musician along with the student. So what did you discover? Come, who's going to talk?
Apparently it's going to be me.
Just sitting the closest.
Okay, now we just looked at the last part, and we just said, that's actually amazing to see that in the worship team, there was the youngest. If you can just imagine a 3-year-old standing there upstage with a 40-year-old, it's actually going to be chaos, according to us. So I think we have to change our worldview of the professionalism we want in a team. We have to create a platform for the smaller ones to also be creative and also to be part and to be themselves. I think we can learn to be more free in our worship if we look at them.
Okay, right. They're already making applications to today, which is, it's always dangerous because that was Old Testament, but I think you see the picture. Why did David do this? Why did he not say, we pick the best and they are going to perform in the temple so that we know God will be pleased with the music because he's the best musicians that we have? Why did he follow this strategy? Why do you think? Yes.
I think the first thing is inclusion, that all generations are included, but the other thing also is continuity, that there's going to be musicians from generation to generation.
Exactly. Okay. You see, if I'm a pastor and I'm planning my worship service for Sunday, I go to my worship team and I say, you must be perfect. You must be perfect on Sunday because your worship and my message must flow together. And then they say, but we have this new guy, he wants to play guitar. I say, maybe next year. Because it must be perfect. Because you see, my focus is on Sunday. David's focus was on 1,000 years from now. What is going to happen 1,000 years from now? Will we still be able to maintain the temple service 1,000 years from now? Then we have to follow the strategy. There's no way you can. So, and God found so much joy in the strategy. Okay, right now we have a very difficult verse. So I'm going to give the mic to one of you.
A very difficult verse indeed. That is 2 Chronicles chapter 31, verse 16. Here, the history briefly is that. Okay, so they were reforming, they were rebuilding the church, they were trying to do things the way God would love them to do, and they were bringing tithes into the church. And now these tithes needed to be distributed. And they called 3-year-olds. According to the verse, it says, 3-year-olds or more whose names were in the genealogical records. In other words, they had to call children, 3-year-olds, whose fathers, grandfathers have been in the records. And they need to distribute this so that they can also fulfill the tasks that were required. So we looked at it by looking at what are we doing with the 3-year-olds in our church currently. So we feel we just let them play or let them sing or pray. But are those the tasks that will help them to become fruitful in the future? I don't know. Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I'll come to you. Okay, just the background again is the Temple Reformation. I never can say the king's name. Hezekiah, that's correct. Okay, he came with the temple reformations and he says, we're going to do things the way that we did it in the old days when Solomon was still around. This is how we're going. So they found the books and they started reading and they said, all the priests, you have to go back to the temple because at that stage, the priests they were running their own farms because nobody was paying them anymore. They didn't have any salaries. So they said, now we have to start farming. Nobody was looking after the temple. Hezekiah said, stop, go back to the temple. All the priests. And you are going to receive your from the tithing, you're going to receive your salaries. And everybody who is doing duty in the temple will receive some portion. In other words, a salary. And it will start at the age of 3. Is that child labor? Children of 3 years old were already included in the temple service. And maybe it was like this picture. Maybe the boy was just standing there. His grandfather has the duty of working with the flames, working with the candles, working with the, the boy would not do the sacrifice. He would not slaughter anything. But he will be there. And he is honored by God as a full priest at the age of 3. Wow. Huh? Okay, next group. Who's going to take it?
Okay, our scripture is from Joel chapter 2, from verse 15 to 16. And here we learn that God was talking to the children of Israel that they should declare a fast. And what we gathered was that even the children, they were considered, they were called to be part of the meeting there. And what really intrigued us is the part where it says, gather even those ones that are still nursing. So it shows that we shouldn't undermine the children. We shouldn't say they cannot do it. We should make them part of whatever that is happening. You know, this was a nation's thing, but God saw it important for the little ones to be part of that which was happening. So even in this movement that is happening, we really need to involve them. We shouldn't undermine them because so much can come from them. Yes, fast, like.
Mothers here, you must talk to me. It says there a suckling. In other words, the child is still on your breast. Joel said, God says you have a last opportunity. I've already started to move these people into exile. That's your last chance. Go and fast. And the babies must also fast. Yeah? Mothers, talk to me. Is it possible?
My point is just how will children be able to receive the Holy Spirit and experience Pentecostal if they don't experience it in the church between the parents?
Aha. Your question is, what about Pentecost? What about the Pentecostal movement? What about the Spirit? If the children can't experience it amongst their parents. No, you are jumping 5 verses ahead, but that's fine. That is the question here. Okay, children fasting. That is something that we say, yeah. Well, especially, you know, the church tradition where I come from, we don't fast that much. I had to learn it on my own. But that's okay. Can I just tell you again about the Orthodox Church? Now, especially the Orthodox Church in Ethiopia and in Egypt. They start the fasting with the babies. And they have a rule. They say, for each year of age, you fast 1 hour. You understand? So that Egyptian mother would come to the priest, and she says, my family, we want to go into fasting. And then the priest will give her some guidelines. He says, okay, bring your children, let me see. Okay, 3 years old, 3 hours for him. That baby, 6 months, half an hour fast for him. Can you hear? Yeah. Now what happens, I've spoken to some of those children. A girl of 4 years old, she says, you know, I'm only 4 years old, but I was fasting for 5 hours. Because she says, I want to be with the adults. I want to be, and the whole Egyptian Christian community would fast together. The whole community. So if you go and visit neighbors, they will also be fasting. So the children know there will not be food, or there will at least not be meat if they're on a Daniel type of fast. So because the whole community is in this, the children are excited, they moan and they complain, but you can see the pride. We are a fasting church. I'm so jealous of those people, that they have that passion just to stick with the Lord. And that's why they survived for 2,000 years as a church in Egypt amongst all the persecution. Okay, let's jump to the next one. Thank you, Neville. Okay, Ezra. Oh, what a beautiful thing. Ezra came back from the exile. He saw this temple. He says, I was crying. What is going on here? Okay. Who's going to talk?
Okay, so we also observe that as Ezra, in a form of repentance, was casting himself down, the whole people of Israel gathered around him, but the children were not exempt. No one said to the children, you are not invited here. They came along, and as the men and the women were also crying, weeping, the children also wept bitterly as they were doing.
I don't know if you ever did a study of revivals. You know, the big revivals in Africa, the big revivals in Asia, and even the revivals in the UK. I think Ireland also had its revivals. All these revivals had two things in common. The one is confession of sins. There is no revival without a confession of sins. Deep confession of sins. Crying. What we saw with Ezra, deep, deep confession of sins. That's the number one factor that you find in all revivals. Number two, in all revivals, children and youth played a major role. Okay. And there are some revivals that were started by children who confessed their sins. And the adults picked it up, and then it started to roll out. The revival in East Africa, Uganda, Rwanda, that it is still running after something like 40 years. And it started with the children, confession of sins. So now, again, the question is, do children see adults in your church confessing their sins? Or are they kept aside from when the times when the confession of sins start? Okay. This group. Psalm 8. Psalm 8. Ah, this is a beautiful verse.
Thank you. Two things. God is not, number one, selective or segregational when it comes to ministry. The word is not just with the adults, but the word and the ministry is coming from the mouths of children and the infants. Secondly, it reminds us of what Paul says. He says, God uses the foolish things of this world to confound the wise, and the weak things of this world to confound the mighty. And here God uses children and infants. That's where the ministry that confounded the enemies came from. It was not from the elderly, it was not from the mighty, but it came from the children and the infants.
Can I just ask you, if I say the word prayer warrior, do you have prayer warriors in your church? Yes. Okay, what picture comes to your mind if I say prayer warrior? A soldier. Okay. You say an adult. Somebody who is seasoned in the faith. Strong. Normally, you know, sometimes these ladies, you know, they are already gray, but they are so strong. And you call them in. You say, sister, we have a problem here. We need some prayer warriors because we are having to confront the enemy here. What does Psalm 8, verse 2 say about prayer warriors? Who are the ones who confront the enemy? Who are the ones who turn those who are against you speechless? Tiny infants. Tiny infants. And how? With praises from children and from tiny infants. Now, the tiny infant there is actually the same kind of word that we had with sucklings. Now, I have no idea how does a suckling praise God. Huh? Maybe by just shouting in the church. And then, okay, and when the child starts shouting in the church of 3 weeks old or 6 weeks old, what do the elders say? And if she doesn't say, then out. Ah, Pastor, you just sent out your only prayer warrior. Is the one. That was the one. Okay. We can joke about this, but I think what God is saying here, you said it so clearly, that God is too mighty to be tied by white hair and gray hair. He says, I'm in a baby's praises. And I can understand his praise. You don't understand. You think he's crying. And then you change his nappy. But that was not. He was actually praising me. But that praise is strong enough to chase away the enemy. What a God we serve. Huh? We are just blessed that adults are allowed to praise him. He doesn't need us. Okay, last one. Who's going to talk here?
Yeah, here what we discussed during the time when Paul was leaving the congregation, all the children were among and they left to the shore and pray. So they didn't let the children out, meaning the children are also part of the service or the congregation.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, but now this is one of my favorite verses in the Bible. Because you see, when Luke wrote it down, he put in some detail, some very important detail. He said, by the time when this was over, our time with them was over, we left and went our way. Okay, right? How did they go? They couldn't leave by taxi. They had to leave by ship because they were leaving to a next island or to... All of them, now that meaning the local Christians, together with their wives and children, went with us out of the city to the beach. That sounds like a nice thing. Where we all knelt and prayed. 3 words that Luke put in. Beach, knelt, and prayed. Why did he put in those three words? Why did he put in beach? He said they went with us to the beach. Huh? Jonathan.
Yeah, today if you want to talk of beach, people will be talking of entertainment. Then also you put there is risk over there.
Why?
Because the children at the beach, you are praying. If they are left to also play without praying, anything can happen.
Okay.
By this time, they were also involved in the kneeling, which children usually, you tell them, no, that means punishment. But this time, they are doing that not in the form of punishment, but to worship God. And children too can pray.
Yes.
This time, they were seeing, let's say, the pastor off.
Yes.
And the children were part of the send-off service. They were not left out because the pastor pastored the children too. So they must also see him off.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You know, the Ghana beaches, they are busy. If you go to Ghana, you see the beaches, there are many people. So I can think it's risky to take your child there. But I want you to come back to this word beach. Just tell me, in the time of Paul, what happened at the beach? What was significant about the beach? They went there. What was it? What was the beach? Okay, I hear different things. Maybe I'm saying what you are saying. The beach was the taxi rank. That was the bus station. You understand that? Right. Because that is where all the ships came and left. That's why Paul went there. Because they went to get a boat to travel to the next one. And there would have been many boats around. Now, many boats means many people. And many people means spazas. No, sellers. Okay, people selling, business. This was the main place for business. All right, okay, so can you see now? Many people coming from many countries to that specific place, they are doing business there. They come from different nations. They have different religions. Some of them are Jews because the Jews were business people. And what was the attitude of the Jews towards the Christians? They hated them. Right, now, because there are so many people, so many boats, so much business, you would obviously find many soldiers patrolling the beach. They would be walking up and down. They would look for troublemakers. If they find the troublemaker, they would remove him, or they would kill him. What was the relationship between the Roman soldiers and the Christians? They saw them as a terrorist group. So, one of the most dangerous places that you could take a child to was to the beach. You certainly don't go to the beach and expose yourself as a Christian because you only have enemies there. But look at this. Luke says, we went to the beach. We knelt down. It was the only religion at that time that actually knelt down. And we prayed. And how did they pray? Softly, walking, just a prayer walk. No. They prayed out loud in the name of the Lord Jesus. Please bless this man. All the Jews would hear these prayers and all the soldiers would hear that. They were putting their lives on the line. They knew it. It was an open declaration of the fact that we are Christians and we do it in the most dangerous place in the whole of the city. Why did they take the children? Are they crazy? They could have left the children at home. They could have finished praying at home. They could have said to the mothers, you keep the children here at home. You pray. It's going to be dangerous. We're going to go out there. We might not come back alive. Why did they take the children with them? You tell me. Why did they take the children?
Because their son is the enemy. Teach them courage by example.
Yes.
Children silence the enemy.
Okay, obviously the children are the prayer warriors, certainly. But how can you teach a child courage other than through infection? He must see you in a situation of courage to be infected with courage. Okay, you can just show the next one. This is also a picture, this is a modern painting, so it depicts Christians in the arena in Rome, and they are at the point of being executed, and the execution is by the lions. Okay, so you know the story. But can you see that group down there? Maybe just press the next one. What do you see there? Okay, so unfortunately it's not a very clear picture. Yeah, thank you, Neville. The church was built on the blood of the martyrs. And children were amongst those martyrs. And Paul and all the others, they knew if the children are not exposed to this danger while we are still alive, they will never have the courage to continue when we are dead. And children were there. Okay. Can you see why I say this verse is actually, it is so challenging to me. So quickly in your groups, I think my time is basically finished. Just in your group say, what are the implications for you and for your church and for children's ministry for the future in terms of everything that we have read now and that we have listened to? Very quickly, I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. What are the implications? Okay, time will not allow me to ask you to respond. I hope we are going to continue this discussion. I think what you said, and I heard some of you just saying it is, children have to be included. You cannot exclude them. Now, of course, people always ask, so does it now mean that we must close our children's church and now everybody goes into the main service? It's never what I said. It means that when you start doing service, when you start going out on outreaches, when you have your small group meetings, when you pray, include the children. They must see you praying. And remember what I said, it's not only the parents. It must be at least 5 or 6. 5 or 6 adults, at least. But if it's the whole church, if they can see that auntie, that uncle, this father, this mother, they were confessing their sins, or they were praying for the sick, or they were going out with courage and they took us along, then those children will grow up with faith. Real faith, not knowledge. Faith that's inside them. So I want to challenge you. Whatever you do from now on in your church, ask this question: are the children included? Are they actually picking up the faith from the adults? And the other way around. Are children allowed to affect or infect the adults with their faith? God bless you. Sam.